make Anthony Joshua the face of boxing with the situation that Canelo is facing right now? How do you feel about that?
No question about it. No question about it. But you know, the same is true for Deontay Wilder. If he wins, I do believe that the winner of that fight is going to come out as the face of boxing. And you know, we sort of like had a bit of a dry spell when it comes to the heavyweight division, which were for so many years under the Klitschko's, and were basically the heavyweight division was Klitschko, and so we finally, the heavyweight division is breathing again, and I think that the fact that the heavyweight division is breathing again, it will bring non-boxing fans to the sport as well, because the fact is, whether boxing fan or not boxing fan, people like to watch a heavyweight fight, and these two, Deontay Wilder and Anthony Joshua, have it in their hands to really to make it happen.
As for Canelo, where do you stand in his situation as a promoter? If you're Oscar De La Hoya, you know Oscar very well. How do you deal with this? How do you come back from this? Can you fix it? Is it fixable?
Well, look, I don't really know all the particulars related to the case. I know that 2011, the soccer team in Mexico had issues with contaminated meat, and then we knew that in the same year we had Eric Morales, you know, having issues with that as well. But in a way, it's sort of like become a bit of an old story. Here we are 7 years later, and we're still using the contaminated meat as a framework of why somebody tested positive. You know, by now people should know, athletes should know, not to eat meat in Mexico. So, you know, I mean, yeah, it does pose some question marks. I personally, I know Canelo very well. I don't think that Canelo is a cheat, you know. I don't know enough of the facts, but you know, at the same time, I think I can see why the Nevada Commission is doing what they're doing, because if they let that go, then the next time somebody tests positive, and he's going to, guess what, blame the Mexican meat again. So where does that stop? It's got to stop somewhere. Only if it stops somewhere, athletes are going to be more careful what they eat, because they know whatever excuse they're going to come up with is not going to fly. The fact is, you test positive, you're going to get suspended. And you as an athlete, it's your responsibility to ensure that what you put in your mouth is in fact something which is permitted.
There's a lot of great young fighters out there with so much potential. You guys have a batch of them. There's Spence, there's Thurman. But is this detrimental to boxing that Canelo's in the situation, the face of boxing? Now we don't have a big fight on May 5th, and boxing is used to that big fight at least twice a year. You know, and now we're left with nothing for the time being until they clear it up on April 18th.
Well, the good news is we're always, as being a boxing fan, I cannot remember a period where we had that many great fights on a consistent manner, and the way Showtime has stepped up to deliver these great fights weekend after weekend is just absolutely mind-blowing, and I think that really makes up for the disappointment here with May 5th. But it's funny that you asked that. I was thinking last night the same. I was always looking forward on May 5th to sit at home, either if I didn't promote the fight, sit at home and watch it, or if I promote the fight, the whole excitement of fight week activities of the Cinco de Mayo weekend, particularly in Las Vegas. And yes, you know, it's a void, and I sure hope it's not going to happen again. But you know, Canelo hopefully is going to fight later on in the year, and we're going to look forward to maybe a September fight. And I don't know exactly what Golovkin is doing. You know, he's trying to really force hard a fight for May 5th. And sometimes, you know, when you force too hard and there's no apparent option or opponent, sometimes it's better just to take a step back and say, you know what, I'm going to let that one go, because I'm not really going to do myself from a legacy point of view a favor, and I'm not really going to do the fight fans a favor. And maybe it's better just to wait and fight Canelo in September, hopefully.
He's been reduced to the StubHub Center on regular HBO. Does that show that he's maybe not the star that they think he is, and they do need Canelo more than what they think they do? And some people feel they kind of talked their way out of the May 5th fight to some extent. They do want to blame them to some extent. Where do you stand on that if you kept?
Well, I don't think, I mean, I look at the StubHub Center as the mecca of boxing here in the Western United States. I think it's an absolutely fantastic venue. Fighting at the StubHub Center, there's nothing wrong with that. I think, you know, the length you have to promote is not good. The fact that you don't really have an option. I mean, I'm hearing names like Spike Sullivan. I'm hearing names of Honest Martrosian. You know, I mean, is this really what we want to see? That's what I'm saying. I think in a way you even harm yourself by doing things like that. I think it's better, as I said, to take a step back and say, hey, you know what? Maybe I'm better off moving the fight into June and see if I can make. That's what I would do if I would be Tom Loeffler. But you know, Tom knows what he's doing, so I don't want to belittle him or so. But I would probably take a step back, wait until June. I read reports that. Billy Joe Saunders will be available sometime in June. You go for a unification bout that takes care of these looming issues with some of the other mandatories he would have, and you go and have now enough time to promote it. It's a World Championship unification bout for all the belts. I think he has 3 now. That would be the 4th one. That would be for the undisputed middleweight championship. So that seems to be, to me, a much better option than fighting Spike Sullivan or Honest Martrosian. And okay, so you can't fight in May, but you know what? Why do you need to fight in May? You're not Mexican anyway. So you go into
Mexican style.
Mexican style, yeah.
Richard, is it going to be difficult for Canelo to rebound from this? As you see in the part of public opinion, he has been destroyed.
Yeah, but you know what? Fight fans, sports fans even, are a very forgiving bunch. And what might be big headlines today, by tomorrow it's going to be forgotten. So I don't think so. As long as he, it doesn't happen again, and I think he'll be okay.
How surprised were you when you heard the news that he had?
Well, I was surprised. I know Canelo well, and I do not believe that he is a drug cheat. He trains hard, but at the same time, that excuse with that contaminated meat is getting a bit old, and I really mean old, because I remember it was 2011 when the meat popped up, with Morales, and the year before with the Mexican soccer team. So here we are, 8 years later, and we're still talking about the Mexican meat. By now, people should know not to eat Mexican meat. I mean, when I say people, I mean athletes.
How difficult was
I eat tacos too. So.
How difficult was dealing with the situation with Morales in 2012 prior to the Danny Garcia fight?
Well, it was difficult, because it's sort of like thrown at you and you don't really know, and you try to educate yourself. And the fact is, just shortly before that, the Mexican soccer team had similar issues. I don't know if since then they have other issues, because I know Vargas I think had the same issues. So I think as I was just saying, I think it's important at one point to put a stop to that, because otherwise athletes are just going to take the all, and if they get caught, they're going to say, well, I had Mexican meat. So that's going to be like the go-to excuse, and we've got to stop that, and athletes going to need to know that if they do test positive, no matter what they took or who gave it to them or whatever, in the end, it's their body. They put it in their mouth. It's their responsibility, and if they get caught, there will be consequences. And that Mexican meat story, that we're never going to hear about it again.
Based off your experience, what percentage of the business is May 5th and September 12th to Golden Boy, would you say?
Well, I think those are two big fights. I mean, these are the 2 best dates, and I think by missing out on that, you have basically these 2 dates pretty much carry the year, carry the business. So it's a big impact, no question about it.
What percentage would you say?
I would say that each one of those events probably makes up 45%.
So 90%?
Yes.
Wow, I would say you're officially back, man. All the media's around you again, like it was a long time ago, man. You're back.
With a fight like that, a rematch of one of the most exciting fights I've seen. I remember I was sitting ringside there. I wasn't in the promotion business, but I love those 2 guys and had promoted most of their fights. These are 2 truly great guys, 2 action fighters. You know that you won't see a boring fight. 2,000 punches thrown in the first one. I mean, just unbelievable. I can't wait, and you know, somebody asked me, who do you favor? I said, well, it's a 50-50 fight. I mean, you look what Morris has done since he had Robert Garcia in the corner. He looked spectacular. He's full of confidence, but so is Leo Santa Cruz. I mean, in a fight like that, I'm happy to be back in the promotion business. Tickets went on sale like a little over a week ago. We sold over 5,000 tickets already, so I think that's going to be a sellout. Fight fans are going to respond. It's $50, so I mean, it doesn't get better than that.
Talk about Eddie Hearn. Rumor has it, I haven't been home yet to go online, but they say they offered Deontay Wilder $12.5 million, and the fight is scheduled to do $100 million, projection-wise.
Well,
what does Deontay Wilder do? And part two, what does that say about Eddie Hearn offering $12.5 million?
Well, I think this just shows you, you know, making an offer. You can make an offer saying that we want to fight, but your offer is such that you really don't want to fight. And that's what that shows. I mean, they fought Joseph Parker, and they gave Joseph Parker 33%. It was a 33% deal, 77%, you know, to 67% to Anthony, and 33% to Joseph Parker, World Title Unification bout. Now, we all know that Deontay Wilder is worth substantially more than Joseph Parker, because Deontay Wilder does bring the U.S. market to the table, which is substantial. So if they in fact offered him $12.5 million, which I have a tough time to believe, because I don't think that even Eddie Hearn would stoop that low, that would be 12.5% of a potential. I mean, that would basically tells you that they don't want to fight. That's what it tells you.
What would be a fair share?
Well, if they offered, I mean, I said before, in my opinion, because of the revenue implications, and I explained it before, I think it should be 50-50. Both are champions, both bring something to the market. Each one of the guys is going to make substantially more money if they fight each other than if they fight other guys. So I personally think, and I could really walk somebody through the numbers, because I know the pay-per-view business probably better than most. I think it should be 50-50, but let's say it's not 50-50. Let's say it's 45-55, or even if it's 60-40. I mean, you really can't go lower than that, because again, they gave 33% to Joseph Parker. So how can it be possibly be the same or less than that? If it's the same or less than that, then the message is very clear. And fight fans and media guys, don't be fooled. They don't want to fight. They don't want to fight.
Now, Richard, you just spoke about you knowing more about pay-per-view than most people do. On that note, in your expert opinion, what are the percentages that we actually get that fight in 2018? What do you think?
Well, I mean, I was actually, if you would have asked me half an hour ago, I would have said it's pretty good. But now what I just heard, again, if that is really true, the 12.5 million, if that is really true, then I think the likelihood that we're going to get it is pretty strong. Because one guy, and his name is not Deontay Wilder, doesn't want it. And you know, truth be told, I'm actually not so sure whether if it's one guy, you know, that one guy might actually, we know it's not Deontay Wilder, but it actually might not be Anthony Joshua either. There actually might be another guy who doesn't want it, and his initials are EH.
Who's that? Eddie Hutz?
Richard, you had mentioned Amir Khan earlier. Just talk to us about how now Amir Khan being with Eddie Hearn, who has a vision of coming over to America and taking over. He's taking Khan to the UK. Khan's already had an established family series, taking him back home. Maybe that's what Khan wanted, but what do you make of the fighter signing with different promoters and PBC kind of expanding and going a different route over there?
Well, you know, I think, first of all, the decision for Amir, who I'm very close with and very friendly with, it's a 3-fight deal. So it's not like he signed away his life. And I do believe, after recent fights Amir had in the US, that it makes a lot of sense for him, and I actually recommended that to him, to have some fights in the UK. So I think that's perfectly well. I think Amir realizes as well that, with the exception maybe of one fight, I'm talking about the Kell Brook fight, all the other big fights would be over here in the US anyway.
Mayweather kind of warned Charlo of maybe signing with Eddie Hearn, being that maybe he doesn't understand him as a person, how we'll be able to promote him. Where do you stand on that? Do you think that Eddie Hearn can promote these fighters properly in the U.S.? He has Daniel Jacobs right now. You saw his last fight did. His second fight's coming up. Do you think there'll be much change? Do you think he actually can come over to the U.S. and have success?
Well, you know, you have to sort of like Eddie Hearn promoting Anthony Joshua is one thing, and then the other fighters is another thing. I mean, your grandmother, my grandmother, mine passed away, but she could promote Anthony Joshua. I mean, anybody can promote Anthony Joshua. Then you look at the other fighters, and so Eddie did the fight with Danny Jacobs out out in the woods there in Long Island, you know, the Nassau Coliseum, and I think they sold 186 tickets. So you know, it's a little bit different promoting here than promoting you know, Anthony Joshua. But hey, you know, he wants to do that. More power to him. As I said before, I wish him well. I think he's a charismatic guy. I think he speaks well, and you know, he certainly, you know, puts the promoter first. You know, he's in the spotlight. He likes to talk, and so hey, if his fighters are happy, I'm happy for him and happy for them.
Since y'all divorced, how's Oscar doing as a promoter to you?
Well, you know, with Canelo, he is obviously a big name, a big
Outside
star.
of Canelo, how's he doing?
Well, I'm going to reserve my judgment.
Why?
Well, you know,
he said many things about. I mean, come on. He's never held this talk about you.
That's okay. You know, that's him. That's him. Look, I mean, this is my Golden Boy chapters in the backview mirror, and I know the people there. I know they're working hard, and you know, I don't have any ill will towards them. You know, hopefully they do well. I think they have Canelo, and other than that, they don't really seem to have a very deep or meaningful stable.
Ryan Garcia.
Yeah, I think that's a fantastic prospect. You know, that's a fantastic. I think they have a couple of young, good prospects, and you know, it takes time to build it up. And they have a great relationship with HBO, so that's good. You know,
the reason why I asked you, I was leading you to. He said he could promote Earl Spence and Deontay Wilder and make them a mega star.
Well then, okay, you know, I mean, who has he made the mega star?
You're an expert at promoting.
Huh?
Canelo himself, he promoted Mayweather's fights early on in his career.
Well, yeah, I think I was pretty much involved with Mayweather. You know?
You were the middleman with Mayweather, I know that.
Well, why don't you ask Floyd that question? But, you know, again, hey, look, if he feels he can do a good job, I mean, and these guys want to go and be promoted by Oscar, then what can I say, you know?
Richard, what do you think of the Lucas Matisse and Manny Pacquiao fight that just got made?
That's
and the fact that he
interesting-
decided not to fight Alvarado and made his own decision to fight Lucas Matisse?
I think that's an interesting fight, you know, a fight I like to see. So I think that's a good fight.
Or do you think Manny still has a lot left at this point, Richard?
Well, based on his last performance, not really, and it's just normal. I mean, this is like the same story all over. You know, you see great fighters, you know, age catches up with them, and you know, somebody else is going to come and is going to take over the mantle. I don't think that somebody else is going to be Lucas Matisse, because I don't know how much Lucas Matisse has left based on his last fights. But I think that's what makes it such an intriguing fight. I mean, this is a 50-50 fight.
Thank you, Richard.
Thank you, Richard.